Injustice, despair, hope. For thousands of people in our region, a wave of emotions has grown from one moment of horror in the USA. In some cases, emotions which have been decades in the making.
I felt angry, I felt hurt, I felt drained, if I'm honest with you.
At this protest in Nottingham, a group of young women take the knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the same length of time that George Floyd was pinned down by his neck by a police officer. Some say the rift between people of colour and police in the USA can't be compared with the situation here. But still, there are many who feel excluded, targeted, even threatened by British police.
I always feel quite, I suppose, uncomfortable, and that's from my own personal experiences when I've been, you could say, targeted. So they've assumed that I'm in the wrong when I'm not, and I'm the only black person there, and I've been kind of picked out. These issues are just as present in the UK as they are in America. It might not be on the same level, we might not have police, shooting black men, but there's definitely discrimination in society, in the workplace, in general life.
Some of the statistics are stark, and here are just two of them. In the last few weeks, police have been more than 6 times more likely to issue a coronavirus lockdown fine against somebody from a black or minority ethnic community. That's despite them making up a far smaller proportion of the population as a whole. And in the West Midlands specifically, a black person is 4 times more likely to be stopped by police for any reason. To put that into context, only 10% of people who are eventually convicted of a crime are black. It's not only statistics, there is experience. Khadisha Brown-Burrell's brother Kingsley died after being detained by police in 2011. An inquest jury found that excessive police force and a failure to provide basic medical attention contributed to his death.
My initial thoughts after seeing what happened with George Floyd in the States was the similar circumstances my brother died. It brought back so many traumatic pain, memories. People are still going to die at the hands of police. We feel hurt, we feel the pain. We have no choice but to march and show our frustration in the way the system is acting and dealing with this.
Most agree that getting more officers from different backgrounds into the police would help. Jakub is an officer in Leicestershire Police.
I have in my policing experience, had, uncomfortable moments and suffered discrimination out there. But what has reassured my family and my community is that, my white colleagues have stepped up. They've taken care of me. They've made sure I was okay.
But recruitment, specifically among the black community, is low. In Leicestershire, people from black communities make up 2.4% of the population, but only 0.6% of local police. And in the West Midlands police force area, 6% of the population is black, but only 1.4% of police officers are black. The West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner has this month committed to quickly recruiting more black and minority ethnic officers.
This is a chance for us to make a real change. And we've got to do it for 2 reasons. One is policing is done by consent in this country, and therefore the police should be representative of the people. The second one is if we don't take people from all our communities, the police are going to be missing out on some people of real talent.
But recruitment drives have happened before and failed. This is a Central News report from 1986.
Today they were back on the Lozelle Road to win over new recruits from the area's ethnic community.
Campaigners say that unless there is real change, people of colour won't enter the police.
Deal with the issue of community relations first. There needs to be a zero-tolerance approach towards racial discrimination from West Midlands Police. Zero tolerance. As far as I'm concerned, you can't educate a racist officer not to be racist. I'm not interested in listening to the argument about unconscious bias. It's either or either. So as far as I'm concerned, the only thing you can do is to sack a racist.
The sense of injustice and hurt felt by many people over this issue is not in doubt. It's now for society to decide how to address it. Gareth Owen, ITV News.
Well, let's talk to Tony Burnett, who is Assistant Director, Diversity and Inclusion for West Midlands Police. Tony, let's pull out a couple of the stats from Gareth's report. First of all, police are over 6 times more likely to issue coronavirus lockdown fines to black and ethnic minority people than white people. And in the West Midlands, a black person is 4 times more likely to be stopped by the police for any reason. I mean, they go to show, as if we didn't know already, that we still have an incredibly long way to go on this, don't we?
We do, yes, absolutely. And I think we've got to kind of look at this in the broader context. So we'll do our analysis as part of our ongoing strategy around procedural justice to try and understand any disparity in the way we operate with different communities. But I think we've also got to acknowledge that in the broader societal context, we've got some issues when it comes to bias. Our officers do not operate outside of that context. The whole of society, and you could quote stats to me around sport, around government, around healthcare, policing is another one. We have to address the issue on a national level of structural bias in our society, and that's what's essentially impacting our service delivery as well. That's not an excuse. We have to do more, and we are doing more to educate officers, to eradicate bias, and to try and get better when it comes to procedural justice and how we administer that. The vast majority, I have to say, of our officers are absolutely fair and strive every day to deliver services in a fair way, but they're doing that in a broader context of structural racism in the UK, and we have to be honest and address that.
So it's far more complicated then than just recruiting more police officers from ethnic minority backgrounds.
That's a big part of the challenge, to be fair. One of the ways that we improve procedural justice and get more fairness when it comes to how we dispense our responsibilities with the communities is by having people in our organisation who represent our communities. That is one cog in a really complex wheel that we need to work hard to kind of drive forward. The other complex issue for us, of course, as an organisation is we've got to make sure that when we do recruit people from different backgrounds, we have a culture in our organisation where they feel included and they are able to share their voice. Otherwise, it's pointless recruiting people from different backgrounds.
And just finally, Tony, does this time feel different to you? I mean, we've been having these discussions of a sort for years. Are you optimistic about the future?
I'm optimistic with a tinge of, I suppose, not pessimism, but scepticism, yes. So we've been on the verge of this discussion before. What feels different at the minute is the level of discussion around structural racism. And what my fear is, and my scepticism is, that potentially this could get hijacked by side issues. And I'm not trivialising people's passion about things like statues, but this conversation needs to be about structural racism. When we get sidetracked into watching left and right groups protecting certain emblems of times gone by, you could argue, then that worries me, because the conversation has to be about how do we eradicate structural racism collectively so that everybody in this society has the opportunity to fulfil their potential on an equal basis. That's the real conversation.
Tony Burnett, Assistant Director, Diversity and Inclusion for West Midlands Police. Thank you very much for joining us.